interesting enough, we have, look, we knew that on the other side of this pandemic, there was going to be some, when it came to theaters and the movie watching experience, it was not going to ever be the same. There were going to be a lot of changes. There were going to be some things that we were not accustomed to because of this, and whether it was this as well as like comic book stuff, some of it, and some people said that, well, this was already on the horizon, this big change. But the pandemic, if you will, accelerated it, right? And I think we have yet another example of this with, I guess, Black Widow was one of the first movies that were blockbuster movies, if you will, that were released. That kind of was another kind of trial run for what was to come, and kind of gauging the market of how is it the movie watching experience going to be, considering the digital like aspect of it all, and the HBO Maxes, the Disney Pluses of the world, and releasing and stuff like that. Like how is the market going to be impacted by that? And this is interesting enough. And big shout out to John, my man John F. Trent over at Bounding in the Comics, because he documents this. And let me actually get this to move over just a little bit. There we go. That's way better. And it says right here, theater owners blast Disney and Marvel for Black Widow's poor box office performance. And just for context, it did drop off a lot. I think it had some decent initial sales for like the initial week that it dropped, or initial few days, but it seems like it fell off a cliff after that. And this is coming from the National Association of Theater Owners. That's NATO of all things. What a terrible, anyway, put Disney and Marvel Studios on blast for Black Widow's poor box office performance in a press release. And you can see the press release here if you want to. Right here for immediate release. It says, going back to Bounding in the Comics, the National Association of Theater Owners, specifically went after Disney and Marvel's decisions to release the film on Disney Plus Premier Access the same day it released it into theaters, calling this strategy a pandemic era artifact. Whew, harsh words. Says Black Widow had an opening of 80.366 million, but had a massive drop off in its second weekend, only earned 26.2 million. It was a 67% decline, the largest decline in Marvel Cinematic Universe history. The organization claims that Disney and Marvel Studios are actually leaving money on the table by releasing the film on Disney Plus Premier Access rather than having it be exclusively in theaters. They claim that despite assertions that pandemic-era improvised release strategy was a success for Disney and the simultaneous release model, it demonstrates that exclusive theatrical release means more revenue for all stakeholders in every cycle of the movie's life. So from the creators themselves as well as the theaters, everybody does better if you do a more exclusive theatrical release. NATO claims that the film should have had an opening weekend between 92 and 100 million, and even suggests it could have gone as high as 130 million. Not only does NATO claim Disney is leaving money on the table by not releasing their films exclusively in theaters, they also call into question Disney's claims of success that the movie earned 60 million via Premier Access. And those are, it's funny because with those numbers, they're always going to be like funky because those numbers, we don't know about them. You know what I mean? So those numbers are always going to be up for question. You got to be careful with those, like the actual company telling you how much they made or how much success they saw by way of the digital numbers that only they control. You know what I mean? Like that's always sketchy as fuck because they can bend those numbers as however they want. NATO notes early analysis pointed to 60 million in Premier Access revenue and compared it to the domestic theatrical 80 million and declared it a success, especially because Disney keeps every dollar of home release. It does not. Approximately 50% of the revenue goes to various platforms through which customers access Disney Plus. They continue, it ignores that Premier Access revenue is not newfound money, but was pulled forward from a more traditional PVOD window, which is no longer an option. Further, the 60 million is the global total and should be compared to the 158 million theatrical total they added. NATO also notes that by releasing through Premier Access, they are losing money per viewer over the film's life. They make this point by noting the average number of people in the U.S. households is 2.37, and that an average Disney Plus household is more than likely larger. Very true. This assumption is people who paid for the film on Premier Access would only, let me go back here, would have bought tickets at theaters, and Disney would have made more off those individual tickets rather than the 30% flat fee for Premier Access. Interesting. And then this is probably where they lost it, where they say piracy is also to blame. And obviously they're going to have more access to the piracy when you just give them the digital version of it. So you got very good looking digital copies that are going to be out there because of that. And they bring up torrent freak and shit right here. The most important answer is the simultaneously release is a pandemic era artifact that should be left to history and the pandemic itself. So basically saying that here, what the National Association of Theater Owners are saying is that they used what maybe made sense in a way to release a movie, which maybe made sense for the heart of the pandemic. It doesn't make any more sense now, definitely, as you have reopenings and whatnot, and in doing so, they are fucking everybody over. That's the argument. So, of course, they are criticizing and using as a basis of this in this write-up right here that was for immediate release, talking about Marvel and Black Widow, obviously. So, long story short, it seems like there's a butt of the heads here, and I'm actually interested to see how this plays out, because that was one of the things that I worried about when, okay, we got on the other side of the pandemic. You've gotten a bunch of people that are kind of more accustomed to what's going on or what you have been doing with these sort of HBO Max's releases and the Disney Plus, where you're basically giving people the option to watch these films, which generally would only be exclusive for a long period of time for the box office. So you had to actually go to a theater to watch. Now you can get them at the comfort of your own home, and that works for some people. And that's what I'm guessing the data, they don't think is proven that to be conducive for them, definitely as theater owners. And they even say, and are using the fact that they're hurting themselves in the event that you continue to release things right now. We proposed to make this exception for the past year. We all took losses. It was demanding. It was unfortunate. And it's well beyond the time that we get back to kind of what it is that we're doing, because you're hurting everybody's pockets. So what does Disney do, especially because Disney is one of those mega corporate entities that they can do whatever the fuck they want. So if they decide, you know what, we don't care about how much money y'all getting as long as we get it, and how does that impact the relationship between the theaters, and do theaters become more obsolete with that? Now, I'm a guy that I don't mind watching a movie every now and then here, but I do like the theater watching experience. Not necessarily I like people being in a bunch of people. I don't like full theaters, which is why generally when I do go see movies, I go see them like early in the morning, the kind of matinee thing, or every now and then I go see it like a private viewing where it's more spacious and stuff like that. But I do like the overall movie watching experience, and I think to a lot of people they like that. So and you don't really get that with like Disney Plus of the worlds and whatnot. But I know that there are a lot of people that do prefer to watch it that way. And where is the middle ground there? And I think we're going to see this game of chicken, much like I'm playing right now with Twitter, a game of chicken that's being played between the theater owners as well as Disney and the companies themselves that are doing, and because they have their own like streaming services, how they put that information out there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.